the answer. 8.
3.56. I know the answer. 5. The answer is 5, people.
Bitch, you guessed it. You was right.
Duh.
Bitch, you guessed it.
And today we have Buttercup versus Math. That's not a very exciting title. Then again, how can you really make math sound exciting? I mean, look, I'm someone who loves the subject, and even I wouldn't describe math as a fun activity. Although, the title's just one part of the overall equation, to put this in math terms. And there's several other variables that factor into the final solution of whether or not this episode is good. First, we'll add and subtract the positives and negatives of the episode and divide the plot into smaller integers, then simplify our final conclusion at the end of the review. Sound good? Okay, good. Holy shit, Malin's back. Well, I mean, technically she cameoed in Super Sweet 6, but as an actual character this time. That's right, we're finally seeing Buttercup and Malin's friendship carry on ever since the earliest episodes of the show as the two race each other down the halls to math class, completely decapitating Barry in the process.
Heads up! Oh, no!
So, the two of them arrive at the doorstep of their classroom and Miss Keene reveals to Buttercup that she successfully tested into honors math. Not Blossom though, the smartest girl of the three. Nope, instead she's still stuck in regular math with Bubbles and everyone else, while Buttercup gets to go learn about 45, 45, 90 triangles with all the honors kids. Makes me question why Blossom is presented as the smart one 90% of the time, yet every single time we get an episode actually involving intellect and smarts whatsoever, she's suddenly not good at it all so that one of her sisters can excel. But whatever, I've given up on this show staying faithful to the characters a long time ago. Who cares about consistency, right? Apparently Buttercup is just magically good at math now, despite there being no reference, establishment, or foreshadowing to this whatsoever in any previous episode, with the sole exception of one throwaway gag in People Pleaser, where she realizes the scientific formula for impact.
Blossom, you're in regular math with everyone else.
Everyone else? Hey, I'm everyone else. Let's go. Time to fill our heads with numbers.
I would at least be okay with Buttercup's placement if Blossom was in honors math with her, but nah, the writing needs her not to be for the sake of some cheap joke. Truth is, the fact that she's not makes me raise an eyebrow, and the way her character suffers intensively is not much of a fair trade-off. Malin expresses concern that Buttercup's a nerd now, which makes me quick to jump and say, wow, Malin, you're such a shit friend. But my opinion of Malin's actions actually changes by the time of the episode comes around, so I'm not going to hold this against her because she has a personal reason for acting like this. Buttercup reassures her that it's just a class and it won't affect her image until she actually gets to the class and all these nerdy kids start chanting Math Queen at her over and over again. This room is literally full of the most stereotypical math character designs you can possibly imagine. There's the guy who has really bad acne, there's the girl who wears headgear all the time, there's the quiet shy boy you can't understand, and there's the teacher who looks like Albert Einstein. I don't know if this episode was trying to promote math the same way Viral Spiral was trying to promote computer programming, but I couldn't find any sources online or articles that support that notion, and based on the representation of the subject in this episode, I'm gonna guess that it probably wasn't. Either way, Buttercup versus Math is failing to make math look enticing because it's appealing to the lowest common denominator of stereotypes. I find it hypocritical for this show to say programming is an activity for anyone, even Bubbles can do it, even though I still stand by the fact that it doesn't suit her character and it should have been Blossom, but I know some people disagree with me on that, and it is what it is, agree to disagree, I guess. But it goes on to show us the only people who are good enough to get into honors math are annoying nerds and losers.
Your mathematical wand is actually your pencil. My pencil chose me. We've been through many mathematical battles together. Why, it was just the other day.
Can you just, not?
Despite the fact that programming and mathematics are two STEM subjects that have a lot in common with one another. Even if this wasn't the intent, and I'm sure it wasn't, it still comes across this way. But I digress. These kids and the professor keep referring to math as mathemagical instead of mathematical, you know, to make it sound cool, I guess, but like, let's face it, it's not. It's really, really hard to make math sound fun. I'm sorry, but it's true. And this is coming from someone with a degree in physics. But either way, this teacher asks the class to solve for x on this triangle, and a bunch of these supposed honors students all just start spouting off random answers without actually trying to solve the problem, while Buttercup just blurts out 5, which is the correct answer. And you better believe I was watching carefully whenever a math problem popped up during this episode. I made sure to check that the solutions were accurate and correct, and the good news is, they were, so there's no worries there. Yeah, the question is actually pretty simple. You just have to set x equal to the length of one of the legs and multiply it by the square root of 2 since it's a 45, 45, 90 triangle. Piece of cake. All the other kids are impressed with Buttercup's math skills, and just when she starts to show some enjoyment out of being smart, Malin skates by and gives her a look of disgust, which makes Buttercup sulk back in her chair in annoyance. Much to her chagrin, this continues later into that night when Bubbles and the professor also chant Math Queen at her over and over again until she snaps at them, questioning Bubbles' chanting considering she's the supposed computer geek, and this is her response.
Isn't Bubbles the computer geek?
Buttercup, there's a marked difference between computer science and math. Allow me to illuminate.
No.
Damn, Buttercup just isn't giving anyone room to speak today, is she? Oh yeah, and Blossom loses her shit again like she did in Splitsville.
What's 2 plus 2? 4! It's 4! Did you see how fast I answered that? I'm on my game! I'm on my game!
Yikes.
That's terrifying. Honestly, I don't know which is worse. They both make it hard for me to sleep at night.
We already have one nerd in this family.
Thank you.
Didn't we just establish Bubbles as a computer nerd though? Why didn't she say thank you too? Literally, all of these characters are nerds now, apparently. Who needs clashing personalities or diversity in character traits, right? Who needs the idea of treating the Powerpuff Girls as 3 separate components of one strong, unified entity?
Can't I just be the tough one like I'm supposed to be?
Buttercup, remember, you define yourself. And who's to say you can't be good at 2 things?
I'm not sure if this is a jab at the people who dislike the decision of making all 3 of the girls academics or what, but I'm going to stand my ground on this. If every single one of the main characters are super smart geniuses, then there is a major loss of individuality. Bubbles is joyful, likes animals and art, and is smart. Buttercup has an attitude, likes fighting and combat, and is smart. Blossom is smart, obsessively organized to an unhealthy degree, and is smart. Like seriously, I don't even know what makes Blossom stand out anymore. She barely acts like a leader, both of her sisters are more intellectual than her. Other than her unhealthy obsession with organization, what does Blossom have going for her? She's not unique. She's not special. Anything she can do, her sisters can do better. What is even the point in keeping her around if her sisters are just going to perform her role for her? It's funny to me how 2 episodes after this one is all about Bubbles feeling insignificant to the team when the true reality is that Blossom is the insignificant one who has nothing to offer. That is why I dislike the decision to make Bubbles and Buttercup smart ones too. Bubbles and Buttercup shouldn't have been given their intellectual abilities out of nowhere. Oh, Buttercup is good at math now, even though her affinity with math was never a thing before this point. Once more, I digress. The next day, the professor dresses Buttercup up like a bookworm and drops her off at school after she tries to make excuses as to why she can't go to class.
I can't go to math today.
You can't?
Cause the teacher hates green, says my hair sticks up too much, and I can't see cause the board is too far away.
Okay, so not only did the professor continue to make her wear green despite her explicitly stating that she can't wear green, but doesn't giving her glasses to fix her perfectly fine vision just make her seeing worse? Well, Malin rolls by, gives up her trust in Buttercup, and skates to the cafeteria laughing with the other debutantes along the way. This causes Buttercup to chuck her textbook in the trash can in a fit of rage while she flies off, and Barry, being the catalyst that he is, drops some radioactive iridium in the trash right on top of it, causing this giant math monster to magically form and take over the school. This villain's name is Isosceles, although most of the shots are drawn to show him as an equilateral triangle rather than an isosceles one, so the name isn't really all that accurate. He claims he wants to take our stupid, messy human society and organize it into one perfect equation.
Why?
So that there will be order in the universe.
Now, I don't know about you, but I have absolutely no idea what to make of that. There's this magical thing out there called entropy that causes the universe to continue to become more and more chaotic as time progresses, so good luck stopping that one there, buddy. Oh, yeah, and the mayor is here too for some reason.
Has anyone seen my puppy? Fluffy. Hey, I'm the number 9. Hey, I'm the number 6.
Oh my, what a cute angle.
Okay, that one was good. Anyways, Isasuke Equilateral, whatever, absorbs all the kids that he turned into numbers and uses them as part of the world's most complicated equation, which Blossom then attempts to solve in order to, quote, see who the nerdiest girl in school is. Needless to say, she fails miserably.
6?
Wrong.
What?
Now, in her defense, the equation she's presented with just loops the same couple of symbols over and over and over and over again with seemingly no end, and since we as the audience cannot fully view the entire equation's beginning and end, I'm just going to deem this equation unsolvable because we don't have enough information. I think it'd be totally doable if it was entirely present on screen, but it's not, so yeah. Buttercup attempts to retaliate using physical force, but that doesn't really seem to work out too well for her, so she has to start solving problems the same way Blossom did.
It's time to nerd out!
Now, one thing I don't exactly find fair is that Blossom was presented with this one singular massive equation she can't possibly solve in a couple of seconds, whereas Buttercup's tasked with figuring out a bunch of smaller problems that allow her to chip away at him one bit at a time. Ain't that some shit? The answers Buttercup gives are all correct answers, by the way. I did indeed check every single one. But this seriously just goes to show how much this episode casts Blossom to the side to the point that it's just straight up unfair in its treatment of her. At least the puns are kinda good, except for this one.
Yippee-ki-yay! I sauce-o, loser!
Well, I guess you solved the unsolvable equation.
She ultimately succeeds and takes down this mathematical monster's mayhem by discovering the solution to his unsolvable equation, which apparently was just pi. Everyone praises Buttercup, and this is where Maylin admits she just picked on Buttercup out of jealousy, so she asks for tutoring assistance in return. I really feel for this because it actually makes sense for her character. She's being a jerk out of jealousy and she casts her out because she feels inferior. She doesn't know how to express her feelings to her friend, so she resorts to what she knows. At the end, she tells the truth and learns from her behavior, making her the best character in the episode for me. Buttercup realizes she can be good at more than one thing and accepts her mathematical prowess. Then everyone ends things off by chanting Mathlete at Buttercup over and over again as Barry runs away from the army that he released from a history book he dumped in Iridium 2. So I think I made my issues with this episode pretty clear. Blossom no longer has anything going for her that her sisters don't already have aside from obsessive organization, and once again Buttercup had to be the one to save the day while her sisters remain helpless, just like Muscle Cup and Greenwing and Mini Golf Madness and all the season 1 episodes too. Buttercup vs. Math ends with Buttercup still in this separate math class from her sisters, although I'm almost certain the show will forget about that in future episodes. I can appreciate the ending of the episode where Buttercup calls Maylin out for saying, "What's the big deal? I'm good at math, so what?" And that's something that I agree with, because you really shouldn't judge somebody purely based off of their intelligence. However, still not fond of the show using stereotypes to depict math class when this is the same show that tried to push programming as fun and accessible to anyone. Just kinda seems contradictory and ingenuine that it would blindly resort to this. The show should have depicted more diverse kids in honors math if it really wanted to preach that not only stereotypical nerds are good at math, because let me tell you, I've witnessed and been in several honors math classes throughout my life, and not one of them was ever this stereotyped. Oh, and before I end this off, I do have one last problem with the lesson Buttercup claims she learns.
I guess I can be good at math and punching. Who knew?
Yeah, how did that work out for you again?
Wow, you suck.